We are live. Hello and good afternoon and welcome to Men's Radio. It is Monday, the 24th of April, 2023. Let's do your shout outs first of all. Who have we got tuned in? Because I know there's a bunch of you that just love to tune in the minute we're on. You obviously get a little notification on your phone and then boom, you're on. So hello, who are we talking to today? I'm Neil. I'm in for Russ Kane today for an hour. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to leave it fairly open. We don't have a guest today because guest couldn't make it, so it's literally just me today. Might even bring some of you on and talk to you today if you like. That is a possibility. Mr. E, the producer, is here in the background and we would love to hear from you today. So I'm going to throw it out to you. This is all about mental health, well-being. Have you got a share of something that you do for well-being? Something that really brings you to a sense of peace, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of calm, just a sense of that general joie de vivre, well-being. Maybe you've got to share on emotional management. Maybe you've got to share something that would be of value to other people, because we're all going through quite a lot of intense life experiences at the moment. Perhaps it was ever thus, I don't know. But, you know, we learn, we grow, we master things, we heal, we move on and all that sort of thing. So it's really about, or hopefully we do, or perhaps we don't. It's about shares, I think, today. Let's just have a real open forum and see what we can share with each other and indeed learn from each other. Hello, Barry J. Allen. How are you? Afternoon all. You made it. I'm very glad you made it. Hello, Neil. Says Robert Van Buren, our resident horologist. Hello to you. Luke Newman, 5 men from Men to Talk completed a virtual TCS London Marathon yesterday. I'm the founder, but the other 4 are attendees of the group. Their mental health has improved significantly over the last 12 weeks of training. I'm so proud of them. Luke, have you been on, Luke? Have you actually been on the show? Would you like to come on? Because if you would, I can send you the link. And I'd be really delighted to welcome you to the show, because this is a great thing to talk about. Maybe you could share some of the strategies. What are you doing to help these people improve their mental health? How can mental health be trained, as it were? These relatively new concepts, I would imagine, for both of us. I mean, if people are in a good environment, mental health is more likely to be the norm, unless they're unlucky. But if people are in a not such a good environment, you could argue that mental ill health is much more likely. And then we would go to the doctor, presumably, if we felt there was something wrong with us, or whatever we felt. But wouldn't it be? But the notion of seminars where people teach mental health, I think, is relatively new. I think that's what I was trying to say. Asa Don Brown. Good morning, Neil Long, and my fellow audience members. Good morning and much respect, Asa Don Brown. How are you? Paul Claridge. Hello. Good afternoon, Neil, and everyone else. And Fat Scotty, afternoon troops. Apologies for being late. You're 3 minutes and 14 seconds late, Fat Scotty. How very dare you? So, Luke, yeah, if you'd like to be on the show, I'd be absolutely delighted to talk to you. Don't be shy. It's only me. So let's get in touch. What do you want to talk about today? I really want to throw this out to you. Really want to throw it out to you today. What would you like to talk about? What's on your mind? What's in your heart? What is it you want to know? What is it you're wondering about today? Perhaps you've had an experience recently, come through it, and you've got to share. I think shares are so important as well, because if we share it with other people, it kind of makes that possibility open to other people on the basis that if they can do it, so can I, generally, most of the time. If one person's done it, and probably somewhere in the world, possibly somewhere in the world, someone else has done it, and that could be really inspiring for all of us. Julie Voice says, out walking the dog in the middle of nowhere, and the heavens have opened, no coat, no brolly, dog not impressed. I love the way you're more worried about the dog than you are. You fear the dog's judgment more than your own wrath, Julie Voice. Oh, Neil. Oh, Emma. Hello, Neil. Hugs all. I'm grieving friends today. One to suicide. I could have helped him. We had similar issues. Could have saved him. That's a really, in my opinion, that's what's the word I want here? Spurious thing to say, because it's kind of in that shoulda, woulda, coulda, and sometimes we really can do our best. It's happened to me. We've done our best, and sometimes it's just sometimes some things we just don't have the power to do. And it is equally very true. I think people really want to be helped and know they need help and want to receive that help and be open to receive that help before they can be helped. What I'm saying is, Emma, don't blame yourself. Don't blame yourself. I have no doubt, given what you've shared with us on the show over the years, I have no doubt that you did your very, very best. And I think anyone here would back me up on that. And if you want to back me up on that, pop it on the screen. Don't blame yourself. Do not blame yourself. Do not blame yourself. And it doesn't do any good anyway. All that'll do is make you feel bad, and it won't change the situation. And grief is an absolute so-and-so to deal with. It really, really is. So sorry, Ems, for your loss, says Fat Scotty. And Chrissy Richards says, coping with grief. Is that something you'd like to talk about, Chrissy? Would you like to talk about that? We can do that a little bit later on the show as well. That other comment, I'm not sure whether I want to put on screen. Chrissy, can you phrase that a second comment in such a way that it doesn't kind of give away what we're talking about, if you know what I mean? That's impossible to do almost, isn't it? I'll come back to that. But are you saying these are things you want to talk about, Chrissy, particularly coping with grief? I'll happily wax lyrical about grief. Yeah, it's an absolute shit. It's absolutely bloody shit. Right, now bear with me because I'm doing all this live because Luke's got back to us and he says he's happy to come on the show. So let's have Luke as our first guest. So, okay, so I'm just going to forward the link to him. So I'm actually going to go off the screen. So I'm actually forwarding an email and talking to you live on the radio at the same time. There we go. Who said men couldn't multitask? Bear with me for a second. Just going to send you the link, Luke, and then all you need to do is click it, and then you'll be in the virtual green room, and then I will see you, and I will bring you straight on the show. So I'm just forwarding this to you now. That's that email address again. All right, bear with me. 2 nanoseconds. There you go. All right. There we go. Super. That is done, and I would love to talk to you about this. I don't remember you being on. Maybe you've been on with Russ. So if I ask you questions that you've been asked before, I hope you don't mind, Luke, but I'm sure you won't because it's just another opportunity to put your message out, isn't it? So while we're waiting for Luke to appear, which I'm sure he will, Chrissy, I know you're going through a lot at the moment. I think sometimes just being in a group where we've kind of got each other's backs. Russ calls it a non-judgmental space. I call it a safe space. We mean the same thing. Russ doesn't like that term. He says it's too Californian. And I kind of know what he means by that. But really just to feel that you're not the only one, that is so helpful. I had a really deep conversation with someone yesterday about something which I'm not prepared to discuss on here. But it was like, oh, you as well? Me too? Because in some situations, you can feel that you're the one in the wrong. And in others, and I think that harks back to what lovely Emma is saying. She's blaming herself. The minute you say shoulda, woulda, coulda, you're blaming yourself. And that really doesn't help. It really doesn't help. It really doesn't. Trust me. And this is the guy that's got the badge, got the T-shirt, been there, done it. I mean, I'd have probably blamed myself for the first fall of man, given half the chance. I don't know. Maybe I was a Catholic in a previous life. No offense to Catholics, but maybe I've got a guilt complex. That's what I'm saying. But don't blame yourself. And where did I get to? I was waiting for Luke to appear. And we talk about grief. I sometimes lose track, by the way, because I've about 4 subjects running through my head at once. So if I lose track, you can bring me back on. Oh, goodness, Julie. Having recently lost my darling husband, my grief is very raw. I think raw is a really good way of putting it. Oh, yeah, group situations. So some situations, it's weird. Psychological trick. If you forget something, completely let it go, do something else, and it'll come back. But then you forget what you were talking about when it came back because you were talking about something else. But yes, we'll definitely talk about that. Some situations you feel that you're in the wrong. Some situations you feel you could have been more responsible and you feel you could have done more, or you feel that you're the only one. And I've said this before on this show, when it's anything mental health related, when it's anything like that, when it's something that's isolating you and you feel isolated and separate, I suppose, separate from people, separate from the world around you, that sort of thing, that's very painful. That is a very painful feeling isolated, alone, separate. and that's when people turn to things that don't help them. I've known many people who've turned to various vices to help them get through, and sometimes they didn't get through because the vice creates a bad habit. I think the medical term for it is comorbid. It's a horrible term. But let's say, for example, someone that drinks a lot to numb their pain. It's a great intention. I commend wanting to feel good. Who wouldn't want to feel good? We all want to feel good. Nothing wrong with that at all. But doing something that's going to be so unhealthy on the other end of it and create a whole new additional set of problems, that's what we're talking about. My favorite phrase, good intention, poor strategy. And I was having that conversation with a friend of mine this morning. So, full circle, we'll talk about grief in a bit. We've got some nice messages for Julie coming in here from Asa Don Brown. Remember, Julie, this guy's a mental health professional as well, so that should give it more power and endorsement. It certainly deserves it. Remember, your pain and grief is a process. Yes, I would agree with that. Do not feel compelled to rush your healing process. Yes, I would agree with that. Be in the moment. Yes, and allow yourself to process it in your time. And what I would add to that, Asa Don Brown, please feel free to correct me because you're the professional. I'm not. I don't claim to have any medical training or any particular mental health training apart from a qualification in NLP, but that's not like years of study. Less intense, less regular, less long. At first, you're absolutely consumed. It's all consuming. You are the pain and nothing else. And then, there was this lovely thing, this beautiful thing I saw on Facebook from a friend of mine who's been through a bit of a bad time, and she's talked about it publicly, so I can on Facebook. And she's got the thing. It's called glimmers. And even before I knew this was called glimmers, I had identified this in my healing process. I called it little flashes of light, but it's exactly the same. So I'm going to jump on a Facebook wall and find it because I'm going to share it with you. Less regular, less intense, less long. At first, you are the pain. You are the pain and nothing else. And then, like I say, the little glimmers start to come, the little flashes of light, and then the light becomes more dominant, and then the light becomes, and everything else is kind of. In an ideal grieving process, I suppose. For example, my grandmother died. Obviously, she died when I was about 18, and I found now that she's in the very fond memory box. I can talk about, oh yeah, my grand, I remember, and it's a fond memory rather than something that causes me pain. If that makes sense. But everyone's grief journey is different, and for me to tell you how you should be grieving would be the most egregious case of mansplaining I think anyone could ever do, and I wouldn't dream of it. Everyone's grief journey is different. Even if you're grieving the same person, I think two of our world religious leaders, Archbishop of Canterbury and someone else, can't remember the other one, but they said no, it was a guy very high up in the Jewish faith, chief rabbi. There we go. I think. Don't quote me on it, but two very high religious figures. And they said, even if you're grieving the same person, the grief journey is different. But know this, you are not alone. Oh, it feels like you are because any mental health thing makes you feel alone, but you're not. You're really not. Luke, going to bring you on in a nanosecond. No, we've had that one. Sue Sleet sending condolences and hugs, Julie, and Paul Claridge. My sincerest of thoughts will be with you. And we'll come back to grief by the end of the show. And I promise you that, because that's something I think we could talk about for days. You could have a whole grief channel virtually. Hello, Luke.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you, sir?
I'm a bit sore. I'm not going to lie today. You know, the old legs are a bit stiff at the moment.
I hope it's from running the marathon.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, nothing else.
I did wonder. So you had a good weekend then. What was your time?
Well, we walked it, so we did 7 hours, 47 minutes yesterday.
Say that again. Sorry, you cut out.
7 hours and 47 minutes. So because we were walking it rather than running it, obviously it's going to be a bit slower if we did run it. So it was all good.
So what's it like walking 26.2 miles or whatever it is? I mean, how knackered do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, literally from the hip upwards, I don't feel too bad. It's the legs downwards. So I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I've actually run the London Marathon, almost exactly to the day 10 years ago. And then we actually did this walking marathon again just October of last year. So this is my second marathon in 7 months. So you think
first of all, massive congratulations. I think much respect to anyone that can do that, because I can virtually not eat a marathon or Snickers as it is now, let alone run one. Why were you raising money for someone?
Well, just we raised money for the Fermented Talk group that I founded and run. So,
I
but I think more
figured that would probably
importantly,
be
it's
it,
all
yeah.
about it's all about the guys really who've been walking it with us. So, all the guys that have been doing it with us over the last 2 marathons we've done have all come through from the Fermented Talk physical or virtual meetings. So they've all suffered with their mental health illnesses in general. So
Talk
the
to us
idea,
about Fermented Talk. How did it start? I'll put the web address on the screen as well.
that'd be
What is
great.
it?
So Fermented Talk was started by myself 3.5 years ago. I lost my mum 18 years ago and to ovarian cancer, and then I lost my sister 8 years ago to breast cancer. So my
Oh
mum was
God.
only 54, my sister was only 44. So obviously
Oh
with that,
no.
it left me a lot with grief, anxiety, depression, of course. But I've always been open with my mental health. I can talk to anybody on the street about how I'm feeling, not just to my family
Yeah,
and
me
friends,
too.
but I know how hard it is for us guys to do that. So I wanted to try and
Yeah, I
form
think I
something
think
where
I think I think there's bit. What's the website address first of all, so I can pop it on the screen?
it's fermentedtalk.co.uk. And it's going to
Wait
get
for
a
it to
massive
bring us.
relaunch in the next couple of weeks, that website as well. So it's going to be very slick and a bit more professional than it does at the
Well,
moment.
let us know when it's relaunched, and we'll give it another shout out on the
Will
show.
do.
Just
Thanks
hit
very
me up
much.
on social media, and we'll certainly do that. Yeah,
Mm,
I think it's becoming less taboo now for men to talk about their feelings. I mean, they've even done scientific tests that men feel just as strongly as women. We're just better at hiding it,
absolutely.
and that's science. Whether we like it or not, we're all capable of feeling equally deeply, pleasure or pain. And that is true. And where the societal stigmas come from that men shouldn't talk about it, to me, ever since I've been old enough to understand the notion of having emotions, I think that's crap. I
Mm.
really do. So I can talk openly to people about mental health, and I do, and it's great that you can too. So you started the charity, and what? So you started it, and then what? How did it build? How did you
So
sort of put it
it
out there?
started just as a Facebook group, really, and then I was getting loads of messages, literally from day dot from men, but
Yeah,
also partners and wives of men as well, saying, look, we need this. So I literally about 6 weeks later formed a group. I'm down in Bedfordshire, and we did it we hosted it in a local cafe here, expecting 3 or 4 men for the door, which again would have been fantastic. But we had 19 men for the door on the
good
first
God.
meeting. We're like, well, this is a need here. So we had a couple of more meetings, 2 or 3 meetings, and then that little word COVID crept in, which shut us all down. But then I found the lovely technology of Zoom. So we had virtual meetings every single Wednesday, which we still do now. So I think we've just celebrated our 150th Wednesday virtual meeting. But obviously now we're going back to physical meetings, so we have them locally as well. So and it's really
What
growing.
kind? And where are they?
They're based in Bedfordshire. So there's a town called Biggleswade, Sandy, and I mean in Cambridge we have Gamlingay and St Neots. However, the virtual meetings were obviously because people can get from anywhere. We attract men up and down the country joining us. We've even had guys from Canada who join us in and New York as well, which has been brilliant. But what we've done as well, we do have one meeting a month where we do the walk and talk, where we instead of just sitting down in a room, we go and walk and talk about how we're feeling. So then come the idea of doing this marathon from that. So we've done 2 now in the last 7 months, which has just been brilliant. And then we've only just been in conversation that we're about to launch for men to talk and fish. So guys will do fishing rather than walking. They'll be sitting on a lake or river nearby and get chatting while they're fishing, which is brilliant. We're seeing
Oh, that's a
a lot
brilliant
of guys
idea.
who love fishing.
Are you a fisherman yourself?
I used to when I was younger. I don't anymore. I'm actually got a facilitator who's going to do it on my behalf because the
Because
idea of me
a bunch of my
fishing.
mates when I was growing up were fishermen, and don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against the sport of fishing, but when you find maggots in your bed as a prank, it's
Yeah, I don't think my
yeah,
wife would be too pleased with that either. So yeah.
yeah, not good. Yeah, keeping it all in the fridge, she'd be delighted with that, wouldn't she? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. No, not for
But it's
me,
for
but
my well-being, dear. Honestly,
yeah. So
yeah.
I've
Well,
got
I love the way
facilitators
that
now who
this.
are coming on board who are really gone right. Can I do this for you, and can I do that for you? Which is again, this is the progress of how it's been for
But
the last three years. Is taking other people on
clearly,
now.
clearly, there's such a need for it, though. I mean,
Yeah,
the fact that you've got 19 people through the door on the first day in a local town tells me that there is a massive need for something like this. Good question here. What is the biggest need do you think that's not being fulfilled at the moment in, shall we say, the mainstream psychology that is being fulfilled by these grassroots things like this? What is the thing that men most need that they're not getting?
I'll tell you the two things I've found over the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously, there's going to be grief. We all suffer from losses. There's two things that I see on a regular basis is people suffering from mental healthness from their work. You know, some people, and like myself, I was 38 until I found a real purpose and what I wanted to do in my life career-wise.
Yeah.
A lot of men still suffer from that now, but also
Yeah.
relationship breakdowns, especially during the COVID period. We had a lot of relationships breakdown, and men do suffer from it. You know, they get upset from losing a male or female partner. You know, and they need support. So I'm definitely seeing the need of relationships and from a work point of view.
And they're the two main ones, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, they say there's only about 4 problems: relationships, money, and health. It kind of boils down into those 3, doesn't it? Pretty much.
Absolutely, and again, moving forward with the financial crisis, what we're in at the moment, you know, we could get worse. We don't know yet, so there's definitely a need there. And for me, obviously, I'm a peer support worker, and I haven't got the answers for men, and I don't dictate that I do, but I do signpost them to relevant people that will be able to support them. You know, we do have a professional board. What we have in all our meetings will say that this is a place for crisis, this is a place for financial reasons, for grief, any kind of that, which is just it's vital for the men who come to our meetings.
I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I think it's absolutely fantastic. We were going to talk about grief by request, actually, like a DJ taking requests, mental health requests, a request to talk about grief on the show. Would you be willing to stick around for a bit while we talk about that?
I can stick around for about 10 minutes if that's okay.
It's more than okay. We value your time. Well, I tell you what, stick around as long as you want. And when you got to go, just say bye. And that's cool.
Absolutely will do.
All right. So www.fermentortalk.co.uk. Just an interesting question, because 50% of the listeners to this radio station are women. Do you ever get any women coming?
No, because we're not. Fermentor Talk is not a charity; it's called a community of interest company. So it means I have a benefit to community of the work I do. So it's government restricted, and I'm not allowed any women to talk in our groups. They can do an odd presentation about if they're, you know, a counsellor or any other kind of support, but we can't have any women on a group because of the government ruling I've got in place.
Yeah, it's not that you wouldn't. I'm sure it was just just because the audience here, and I thought I just wondered.
Absolutely interesting you say that as well, because you know, there's the interesting. I've seen a couple of people who are transgender, so they're becoming a woman from being a man. So I had to have a conversation with them to say, look, when's there going to be a time where you won't be able to come to our group anymore because you're going to be known as a woman? And again, there's groups for them that they need right from that point onwards as well, which we don't see about now. It's just it's a change of lifestyle that we don't think we've seen before. So there's definitely a need for transgender groups out there as well, which I definitely don't know any about.
I completely agree. I mean, when it comes to the whole trans issue, I look at it from a mental health point of view, and I think if that was me, changing my whole identity, something that I identify as heterosexual male, but if I was getting feelings and I wanted to change from one to the other, that's a really sensitive time, I can imagine.
Oh, and it's really the support they need. I know they may get some from their GP, their doctors, from when they're transitioning, but you know, again, some of these guys have come through our group for the last couple of years, and they really need that support moving forward, which we can't provide them because we're only for men to talk, and they're going to become a woman. So there's definitely a requirement there, and something I may actually have to look into.
Certainly a need. Well, anyway, stick around and start to talk about grief. But thank you for everything that you do. Congratulations on the marathon. It goes without saying you're welcome here anytime. Disappear whenever you want to, and let us know when you relaunch your website as well. We'll be glad to give you a shameless plug on the show. All right.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Right, let's have a look at some of these comments. Well, let's start here. Asa Don Brown, mental health professional. Neil Long, it's definitely a journey, and we must allow ourselves to be in that moment. We are absolutely not alone. We are absolutely not alone. We are absolutely not alone. I'm saying that so it drives the point home. We must allow our person to heal and find peace as well. Had a conversation with somebody last night about a slightly different topic, but this does count. And She's reached the point in her life where she's saying, actually, it's about me. I've given so much of my life to people pleasing, to other people, and we've all done that a bit. And don't get me wrong, it's a joy to give. If you feel you're abundant, if you're overflowing, and giving out the abundance of your heart is a wonderful feeling. And I'm never saying it's not. I'm not making a case for Scrooge. However, overgiving to try and please people, and some people can never be pleased no matter what you do, and that's their issue, not yours. That's an entirely different kettle of fish. But the similarity here, Julie, is it's a time for you, and Asa Don Brown's touched on this as well. Number one, you're not alone, even though it feels that way. I mean, just the fact that we're all here having this conversation kind of proves that you're not alone. But with anything mental health related, because when I had my dip a couple of years ago, I felt so isolated and alone. And then came a pandemic, just as a double whammy. And I love the words he's chosen here. We must allow our person to heal and find peace as well. Our person. When was the last time we actually focused on who we are? Our person, our inner self, if you like.
What makes interesting you say that. Sorry, I've read Will Smith's.
Love those words, Asa Don. Go on.
I've read Will Smith's autobiography before the slap.
If you open the book and the big comedy hand comes out and slaps you.
Exactly, yeah, it's a pop-up book. It's interesting. He had marriage counselling with his wife, and they both had to put priorities of themselves, of who they put first. And Will Smith put himself first, being a father to his kids, and then being a husband to his wife. And Jada, his wife, said, "Why have you put yourself first?" He said, "Because if I can't be my best personal version of myself, I can't be the best father to my kids. I can't be the best husband to you," which I found absolutely amazing for me. And I totally
agree. I absolutely agree. The danger is the word selfish, because there's a difference between people that are just miserable, unpleasant, and selfish, and have no empathy or awareness for anyone around them. And then there's self-care, which is completely different, which is putting your own oxygen mask on before you put anyone else's on. It's a bit like saying someone's drowning, by all means throw them a rope, but getting pulled in with them won't help either of you. Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree.
So this idea of putting yourself first, and to do that, it's kind of almost, because I'm on this journey too, so I'm trying to find the words. It's kind of just remembering who you are. The self before life got in the way, that innocent, unconditioned self, that innocence that we were born with, maybe, I don't know, just that thing that, what do you like? Who are you when you're at your best? What do you enjoy doing? What makes you happy? Go and do that. And then you're radiating out happiness. And then you're in that overflow and you have so much more to give to other people. So I would, putting yourself first in that sense, I wouldn't only say it's not selfish. I would say it's bloody imperative.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't like the term midlife crisis either. I've never liked that term.
Why is that?
So I like the term of changing your mental health. So changing your circumstances. For me now, at the age of 42, 10 years ago, I was DJing Friday, Saturday night. I was playing football Saturdays and Sundays as well. And my lifestyle's changed. And I went through a stage where, what do I want to do in my life? I want to change everything. That's not a crisis. That's just a change in circumstances. It's a change of how you're feeling. It's a change in your mental health. And it does take a while to then work out what's going to be good for my mental health moving forward.
So you weren't enjoying the DJing? You weren't enjoying the DJing of football anymore? It had reached its peak for you?
It just reached, yeah, absolutely. I was doing it both for 20 years and it got to that point where I just had enough. Again, it's not, and that's nothing wrong with that. But it's then working out what I want to achieve moving forward. And of course, there's worries about that as well. But I don't call it a midlife crisis. I just have that change in circumstances and change in mental health.
Well, I think you went about it in a healthy way, because you made some very healthy changes and created something wonderful for the world. I think midlife crisis, in the way it's normally used, is going out and buying Ferraris that you can't afford and trying to date 20-year-olds. You know what I mean? Not that I'm saying anyone does that in particular, but that's the kind of version of midlife crisis I've heard. So trying to relive the lost youth is probably a better way of putting it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But even with the way you did it, it's still, and you probably weren't grieving at the time, which is kind of what we're talking about. It's still a process, and it is a process. Asking yourself, trying new things on for size, trying this out, trying that out. Does it work? It's almost like a rediscovery. And when you're grieving, that's even harder. So no one's saying it's easy. Let's pop this up. Paul Claridge, in recent years, I've experienced 2 friends taking their lives. Everything's possible was done to try and help them before they both took that step. I know I and others did as much humanly possible for them, but to this day as a group, we all feel guilty. Yeah, it's really hard not to. It's really hard not to. But I think if someone's decided they're going to do that, there's ultimately it might sound cruel, but we can't control other people. We can't control other people's decisions, no matter how much we want them to, no matter how much we can see it's best for them. I had a friend that drank himself to death tragically, and we tried everything. We tried soft love, we tried tough love, we tried this, we tried that, and nothing. And at the end of it, I wouldn't say I felt guilty, I felt frustrated.
Yeah.
I don't like being beaten, particularly with something like that. And to me, it seems so obvious, but when you're in a grip of a terrible addiction that he was, but yeah, well, you don't have to feel guilty. For what it's worth, you don't have to feel guilty. And what I found, no, you really don't, from a mental health point of view, because again, it's filling your own cup for your own well-being first. Guilt is an emotion that will pull you out of your sense of well-being so fast. That'll take you out of your overflow, and then you've got nothing to give anyone else because you feel bad.
Absolutely. If you signpost people to the right resources, it's down to them to take that step. And if they don't take that step, it's because they see that there's no way out. So you've done all you can, So please don't feel sorry. I'm going to have to apologise. I've got another meeting to go to, but it's really nice to catch up.
You have nothing to apologise for. Thank you so much for being on the show. Luke Newman, fermentortalk.co.uk. Let us know when you relaunch, and we'll either have you back on or give you a shameless plug.
Lovely. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks.
Take care. All the best. Wow, what a lovely chat. Fermentortalk.co.uk. I love the way he reframed midlife crisis, didn't you? Because we do grow, we do evolve, and suddenly think, I would have killed to get behind a set of decks, and I still enjoy DJing to this day. But one day, maybe I won't. I don't know. And then I'll be like, what do I want to do now? I think it also depends how much of your identity is tied up in that. If I'm Neil Long, the human being that feels pretty complete and whole, WHOLE, in all areas of my life, who also happens to DJ, that's very different from Neil Long, the DJ, and have my whole identity caught up in that. Julie, what I would say with grief, my love, I found it was all-consuming and devastating at first, and then it became less intense, less regular, less long. And the people I meet that have been through really difficult times like this, there seems to be 2 common things. And you might find this too, and everyone's journey is different. And if you think for 1 minute I'm telling you how you should be grieving, I would not dream of trying to mansplain this to you, because that'd be just the most condescending, patronizing thing anyone could do. But I do notice, for what it's worth, these 2 commonalities. Number one is it seems to be I don't want to deal with other people's bullshit anymore. I'll be nice, I'll be friendly, I'll be perfectly lovely, but I'm not dealing with bullshit. That's your stuff and not mine. And I'm too busy dealing with my own stuff. Thank you very much indeed. I'm putting myself first, and whatever I've got left, then I'll share some with you if necessary. And if it's an overflow, brilliant. Sort of feeling obligated to fix the world, save the world, help this person, help that person. At a time you need yourself the most, if you like, at a time you need to minister, for want of a better word, to the person that matters the most, in this case you, then it might not be the most helpful behavior. So what I've noticed a lot of people say, I've had enough dealing with other people's bullshit. I'm just done with it. And that applies to me as well. There's some things, ongoing things for years, and funnily I'm at the point of, no, actually, enough. There's nothing I can do. I've done all I can, like Luke was talking about, and I don't need to feel guilty for stepping away and putting myself first. Why? Because when I put myself truly first, Trudy Medley, Julie, sorry. When I put myself truly first, then I can be a better dad to my daughter, I can be a better friend to my friends, and I can be a better person to the person that matters the most, me. Now, some people might say that's selfish, and I say, well, okay, the alternative to that is to continue putting other people first, totally neglect myself, so I've got nothing left, I burn out, and then other people have to look after me. So that arguably might be more selfish if you look at it that way around, mightn't it? If people do throw the selfish word at you. And the second thing I found, it really is a time for you, and it's a time for you to do the things you've always wanted to do. Maybe a long-held dream, maybe reconnecting with friends you haven't seen for years. Really having that thing of being able to make your own decisions for you. deciding what you want and going ahead and doing that. Because ultimately, I think we do things to please ourselves and to make ourselves happy. Otherwise, why will we do anything? And it comes down to self-love. But that main one is, not dealing with other people's stuff anymore. And if it means putting boundaries in, if some people can't understand that, if some people go, oh, what's wrong with her? Then that's their toxicity. That's their problem. It's not yours. It's theirs. And being able to separate that, particularly if you've been a bit of a people pleaser, which I have, it can be very difficult to sometimes separate what's yours and what someone else's. All you need to do is take responsibility for yourself. And responsibility, I'm going to put it on the screen. Not that we need a spelling lesson, but this is a clever way of doing it. Unfortunately, we're not taught these things in society, and I wish, and maybe we will be at one point, but response-ability. So that way it's the kind of ability to respond. Yeah. Excuse me, I'm going to call my producer. Mr. E, I'm running low on power. Could I have my power lead, please? Thank you very much. I love that, springing into action. Did you hear that? Responsibility is just having quite a large palette of things to choose from. So if we've been quite conditioned in our responses, and particularly, all right, I'm sharing profound truths here. Don't heckle.
You've hidden your power supply.
I haven't hidden my power supply. I can only apologise. Where was I? When we've, and particularly when we're grieving, I found it's like your energy is all very closed in. It's all very insular. Yeah. And sometimes it's very easy to ruminate about the same things over and over again. We've touched on it on the show already. Emma's saying shoulda, woulda, coulda, and all that sort of stuff. And we feel better when we're kind of open like that. You see the superstar DJs doing that. They don't feel bad. You don't see them sitting all closed up like this. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of openness we're looking for. But to do that, then feelings are going to come up and feelings will come to be processed. So the second big point is something else I'm going to put on the screen in a second. But just finish it. Responsibility is having a bigger palette of things to choose from, if that makes sense. So rather than things looking very narrow and closed off, there's more choice. It expands your choice. But to do that, you need this little concept, and that's this one, and that's it's allowed. And a dear friend of mine who's presented on this show, Liz Saul, when I was going through my worst time, she said, you know what, it's allowed. And I had all this crap in my head, which people like Luke are working against, doing a counterbalance, a counter thing to it. All this thing, oh, a man should be able to do this. I should be able to work this out. I should have worked this out by now. There you go. Should. I was shoulding all over myself, tightening my auteries and masturbating. Should, ought, and must. If you're using those words, then it's probably not a healthy inner dialogue. It's just allowed. Allow yourself to be. Allow yourself to feel what you feel. It's allowed. And when you allow yourself to do it, it kind of passes a lot quicker. Julie, I'm 8 months into the journey and the waves of grief are still overwhelming, and I'm not surprised. And I hope what I'm saying, if it doesn't make you feel better now, at least offers you a little hope, hope for the future, that you can feel good again. And right now I'm going to find my friend's Facebook post, because this is called Glimmers. And this is a wonderful lady. She's been on the show. And she puts lots of Facebook posts on, so there's going to be a bit of scrolling here, but I thought this was absolutely lovely. Her name's Jo Howarth. If I'm going to put her website address on the screen, because I'm always open to a bit of networking, and maybe she's got some things that can help you. She's a hypnotherapist, and she's a lovely lady, and I'm looking for this quote, and I'll keep talking while I find it. But just allow yourself to feel what you feel. Allow yourself. Don't resist it. I shouldn't be feeling like this. I should have it all together by now. I'm an adult. I'm a fully grown woman. I'm this, I'm that. Nah. Sod all that. It's allowed. You're allowed to be human. And the more you allow it, the quicker it passes. It's kind of what you resist persists, so they say. But the corollary of that is what you don't resist is allowed to flow through and pass quicker. And I really hope that helps, Julie. If you were here in person, I'd give you an appropriate hug and tell you it was all going to be all right, if that wouldn't make you feel worse, because I know what it's like. I really do. Found it. Glimmers. And I described this when I'd already come up with this idea. And then Jo puts it on Facebook, but calling it something different. But the concept's the same. I called it Little Flickers of Light. Remember, it gets less intense, less regularly, and for less long. Yeah, so it might come up really intensely, but then it would only last, for me, 5 hours, where before it was 5 days, where before that it was permanent. I was living it. Then it was 5 days, then it was 5 hours, then it was 5 minutes, and then it sort of, you know, or it might only happen once every 8 months rather than every 8 minutes. Less regular, less intense, less long. Good. I'm glad. I'm really grateful actually Ace is on here, because I'm not a trained psychological professional. I'm really just sharing my thoughts and feelings. And it's good to know that there's a professional that doesn't think I'm talking shit, which is really good. And if you do, please call me out on it. A little like guide to glimmers. Okay. And this is glimmers. Julie, I'm going to dedicate this to you. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to dedicate it to everyone. It's inclusive, everyone. Glimmers. All right. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. It's fair to say you're feeling pretty triggered at the moment, right? Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. They are tiny moments of awe. They spark joy and they evoke inner calm. They have a positive effect on our mental health. And that's why I wanted to read this out on here. They're micro moments causing tiny mood shifts. It's the little things. It's, can you appreciate a delicious cup of coffee, a sunrise? You know, I don't know, someone giving you a massage. I don't know, a smile from a stranger, stroking your favorite pet. I don't know, but little things, because lots of happy moments in a row add up to happy life. Micro moments causing tiny mood shifts. They send cues of safety to our nervous system. Now, I'm sure if we had a mind-body person on here, someone who's into psychoneuroimmunology, PNI, or a mind-body person, and probably a yoga teacher would tell you this as well. Our nervous system, you know, it's a feedback loop between our brain, our gut, actually. A lot of stuff goes on in our gut. Brain, gut, nervous system. It's all one system. It's a holistic thing. We're almost a process rather than a noun, human being. We're also a verb. We're kind of humaning, if you like. And it's that ing thing. It's the process of it. And if there's positive feedback, it creates a virtuous circle, a reinforcing loop that life is okay. Life is okay. Some of life is okay. Bits of life are okay. I feel shit today, but that bit's okay, and that bit's all right too. And actually, that bit's quite nice as well. Not every day is good, but there's good in every day, if that helps. It's just little things. So micro moments causing tiny mood shifts, and they send cues of safety to our nervous system. Again, repeating that, that reaffirming thing, and the more we repeat something, the more we get used to it, and then the muscle memory kicks in, and then we remember it, and then it becomes the new default when we've done it enough. And that's how we learn, by repetition. I bet if I were to say, I don't know, like an old, I'm trying to think of one now, like an old advert that we heard when we were growing up, immediately you'd recall it. You can't get quicker than a quick fit fitter, Tesco's, every little help, right? So immediately that's there. Why? Because the advertising people have cottoned onto this, and they teach by repetition. Repeat. There's McDonald's, there's their jingle. You know it. They create that recognition, and that process in NLP is called anchoring, and it can be used deliberately if you break down the structure, which is what we're doing here. So it's just that little moment of well-being added to another moment of well-being. So rather than remembering an advertising slogan, you'll remember your own well-being. The process is the same, so you might as well hack it rather than the marketing machine. Just saying. They bring feelings of ease and contentment. Our body responds with positive energy. They allow us to feel hope when lost. Our nervous system is strengthened by them, which is nice. They can help increase our well-being. And once we start embracing them, it can become a beautiful way to see the world around you. Once we start embracing them, it can become a beautiful way to see the world around you. And also what I would say about grief, in my experience, is it is still okay to make the most of life. It is still okay to have fun. And in fact, imperative, because if the right people hadn't have been around me, I would have probably just still been a disorganized pile of mush, and I'm much, much better now. But I was just encouraged, that actually is all right to go out and enjoy yourself. It's allowed. It's on the screen. It's allowed. It's allowed. It's allowed. It's allowed. And it's also allowed to be human and have human feelings. It's a horrific loss. And, there's a lot of love in the room, and we'll share that with you and commiserate, if that's the right word, with you. But it's also equally true that we can feel good again, and perhaps that's the purpose of grief, to flush it all out. In my humble opinion, Asa Don Brown says, Julie Voice, I'm sorry you're facing Such a difficult journey. My thoughts will sincerely be with you. Paul says, having been a guest on MRS myself back in the days when I actually had a physical studio in Soho, I must say that if you need to talk, need to express yourself, or just promote something with a mental health link and then get yourself on air with the team, it's a therapeutic thing to do, and you will help others too. Absolutely. Kibi Lashmar says, loving the conversation, Longie. Bravo. Thank you. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm talking too much tosh. I'm kind of just riffing. So there's a zillion ideas come into my head at once. And if I was doing writing, I'd put the little ideas over here on a scratch pad and then come back to them. But I haven't mastered a mental scratch pad. The scratch pad and the talking bit aren't linked yet. Maybe I need to work on that. Fat Scotty says, Neil, we've both done late night, overnight radio. I always have people calling in and offloading their problems as they saw me as a mate in a little box talking. Did you find the same happening, particularly on the overnight show? Yes, Scotty. I found that the overnight audience, it was a lot more intimate. Going back to the Capital Radio days, it was Chris Tarrant in the morning, big personality, Neil Fox in the evening, big personality. During the day, it was more sort of music while you're working, so people may not have been as intently focused on every word you were saying. But overnight, people, the lone security guard, the person that can't sleep, they're tuned into every word, and then it feels like to them that you're their mate. And some DJs use that as a trick to make it themselves more appealing to you, so they get more listeners. It's a DJ trick, and it can backfire because you can get stalkers. Do you ever get that? Oh, the stories I could tell you. But yes, people do, and they do offload. It's a bit like being a hairdresser, because you're a friendly voice, and they kind of fall in love, or they begin to trust the persona on the radio, and sometimes forget that you're human too. So yeah, short answer, yes, I did. Asa Don Brown says, Paul Claridge, never regret with whom you speak with. Be comfortable and know it's all about feeling safe. It's all about the process of healing. It's all about your well-being and the journey of care. The well-being and the journey of care. Your well-being and your journey of care. The only one that can do it for us really is ourselves. And we can certainly be in groups and encourage each other to do it and signpost and share ideas. But ultimately, we're the only ones that can do it. And we can do it if we allow ourselves to do it. And to know it's allowed to do it, and to know it's allowed to have those little glimmers, and to know it's allowed to be happy again, even in the midst of grief, and to believe that the future we will feel happy again, and there's still good things around the corner. Perhaps that feeling of hope and possibility that we felt as a child. Who's to say that couldn't come back? Who's to say? Who's to really say they know enough to know what is really possible? And if we can help people one step on that healing journey, even if to say it's allowed, or you can do it, or just, supporting someone, supporting each other, or knowing you're not alone, we're ticking many boxes here. And this is why Russ and Howard set the station up in the first place, for this exact reason. But it is, and Asa put it beautifully earlier, allowing the person, that's you, to heal. Who are you inside? Who are you really? What makes you you? I can't believe I'm saying all this on the radio. I'm literally just spewing, but these are my musings, man. Thoughts? see what your comments are. Absolutely. Thank you, Asa. Paul Claridge, a friend of mine who has 2 degrees in psychology and practiced a number of years, had a little motto: we need bad times in life to make the good times feel even better. Well, that's the contrast, and there couldn't be one without the other. Having said that, I do feel that we can sometimes, and this was my fear when I was going through the difficult time, that I'll never get out of it, that it's the darkness forever and that's it, and I can't get out. And I knew there was something better, and better thoughts and feelings, and I felt that I was so low I couldn't access them, and that frightened me. It's not true. It comes slowly, glimmers, but that isn't true. So please don't buy into that. So yeah, the contrast makes it more poignant, I suppose, and it kind of makes more sense in that sense. But I think we can sometimes get stuck in the bad times. And for me personally, this is my opinion. I'm not telling anyone else what they should think or feel. I didn't want to get stuck. I didn't want to become the poster boy for grief, if you know what I mean. I accepted it was a process, and I wanted eventually to be able to move beyond it and move through it, and then be able to talk about the people I lost. Like I can talk about my gran now without any negative emotion at all, and just go, oh, bless grandma, in the fond memory box, rather than the raw grief of loss. But it's a process, and it will take its time, and it's allowed. Fat Scotty, geez, yes, the ones that will wait by the studios after the show are them. Even though it's over, it's a fantastic time to broadcast and to have that intimacy that no other show had. Did they wait for you at the overnight show? I never had people wait for me at the overnight show. Blimey, I'm jealous. You have better stalkers than me. That is so unfair. I remember outside the gates, not the gates, in the road at Capitol. It was absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. But that was an example of falling in love with the persona. You know, they weren't well, these people. They really did need help. And it wasn't the help that any DJ could give them. Trust me, no way. Julie, was that helpful? Put me a comment now. I really hope that was helpful to you, Julie. You're not alone, you know. Talking directly to you now, Julie voice. Just me and you. Little personal radio show. Longie says to Julie, you're not alone. 100%. Absolutely. And I hope you feel a bit less alone for coming on into safe spaces like this. Really hope that was helpful, Julie. If it was, stick a comment in. So, yeah, literally, I was just literally riffing there, and I really do help. All of that was helpful in some way. So to sum it up, grief is a process. Everyone experiences it differently. It's allowed. It's allowed to feel good when you're grieving, and it's allowed to feel bad when you're grieving. That's the nature of the beast. That is grief. And it is possible, very possible and probable and definite that you will feel good again in the future when the process has moved on, because people do. And that doesn't mean you didn't love the person. Far from it. Doesn't mean that at all. It just means that it's your life and you're the only one that ultimately can live it. And be loyal to the person that matters the most. You. There you go. We really went deep today, didn't we? We really went deep. How long we got? About 8 minutes. Any other requests? I could play some Boyzone if you like, or a bit of Westlife. I think I've got an old copy of Hi Ho Silver Lining somewhere. We could have a little party. Don't forget, our legal eagle is here on Wednesday. Hattie Savari. She's fantastic. She has a way of making the law, which to me is unbelievably complicated and contradictory most of the time. And she makes it very accessible and easy. She makes it very accessible and easy. And I made her a little jingle. She's Hattie, she's chatty, and all that sort of thing. And it's getting loads of views on TikTok. Who knew I would be a TikTok celebrity? That is crazy. Fat Scotty, I like this. Oh no, this one first. Life will hit you with little static shocks, like pushing a supermarket trolley and getting shocks. Life will shock you and bring you back to being you, so you remember who and what you are. I've heard this theory before, and I wasn't sure if I subscribed to it. It was a lady. She practiced psychic healing, and I know that sounds really weird, but it wasn't. It was in a very kind of clinical medical setting, and she was a very normal lady with a husband at the house. She just had this gift, and yes, I believe this is another conversation for it, which should last years. But yes, there are bullshit artists and charlatans and people that prey on people that prey on people that are grieving, for example, and I have no time for people like that at all. However, there are some people who are genuinely gifted, I do believe, and have a heightened perception, shall we say, and can perhaps notice things or subtleties that other people may not notice. And she said it's like little knocks. It's like a whisper first, then a knock a little bit louder, and then a brick falls out of the sky and hits you on the head and wakes you up. I think they call that a rude awakening. The first bit was rude, but after that there is an awakening. But again, if we're bringing kind of metaphysics into it, there's this other belief which means you kind of have to suffer. You kind of have to go through hell to get to heaven. And that is, so to speak, I'm not being religious there, but you know what I mean, sort of emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and all that. You don't, by the way. It's not necessary, but sometimes, and I'm certainly not saying losing someone is a wake-up call from the universe. I don't mean that at all. But you know these people, they go out of control and then something happens and they go, oh my God, my life is out of control. And that was my wake-up call. You know, we've heard stories like that. And it's that kind of thing. So it's not like they didn't have the little knocks before that and the whispers before that. They just kind of didn't pay attention because they were like a bull in a china shop. But ultimately, anyone can make those changes whenever they want to, with help and support, we would hope. Julie says, thank you, everyone. Neil, you're amazing. Thank you, Julie. Lots of love to you. I'm not doing this to be amazing, even though I am. I really don't, because I want to be authentic. And I think these conversations are really, really important. Aren't they? Aren't they? Of course they are. Asa Don Brown says, Neil Long, excellent conversation. Thank you for always being so authentic. Thank you, sir. That means a lot from a mental health professional, which you are, and I am not. But thank you very much indeed. Fat Scotty says, as long as it's not Seal's Kiss from a Rose, play what you like. I better explain that. They back in the day, it was doing all research groups, who likes what song, and of course all the stations, it was like a piranha's nest of competition, trying to, you know, grab a little bit of meat from the other station, and if they ended up being skin and bone by the time you finished with them, tough shit. Yeah, it was that brutal. And Kiss from a Rose tested very positively, so about every 3 hours is Kiss from a Rose on the. And you know, I love Seal. He's a super artist, beautiful voice, you know, spiritual voice, but my God, if I heard that song once more, Paul Claridge, I used to host the breakfast mid-morning show on a community radio station in London. We'd have a few listeners that would call in. But what made it for me was the guests I was able to book for the show. Many who are household names. They felt safe talking to me and my co-host in a non-judgmental atmosphere. Absolutely. And it was probably refreshing for them, Paul, to be able to talk to you. I don't know you. I've never heard you interview. I've never heard you present. I'm sure you're very good. But I'm sure, given that you're involved in circles like this and listen to shows like this, you're talking for, you know, it's not like, so what was your inspiration? Who do you love in the industry and all that? You know, you want to know a bit more about the person, and I imagine people are very happy to share, because it's rare they would get asked questions like that. I would have thought it's normally just the you know, the typical, you know, cut and paste things you say in an interview. And if you're talking to people on an authentic level, they will respond absolutely. And of course, it's got to be non-judgmental. Love the show today, Neil, and nobody ranting about your speed links being too long. Me? Talking too much? I don't know what you're talking about, Fat Scotty, but clearly my reputation is still clinging on to me after 20 years or so after working for that radio station. But hey, what the hell? Long by name and long by nature. I'll let you work that one out, ladies. Anyway, on that slightly rude note, I'll have a laughing emoji for that one, please. Well, some lovely responses today. It's I'm keeping it light-hearted, but it is a very serious subject. So Hattie Zavari will be here on Wednesday. Russ may be here on Wednesday. He may not. He's just handed it over to us just for a little while until he can come back. He's just doing some things at the moment. I don't know how public he's been about it. It might be on Facebook, but just in case it's not, I'm not going to say nothing bad. Don't worry, everything's fine. Nothing bad. Russ will be back very, very soon. But our legal eagle Hattie Zavari will be here on Wednesday. Thank you so much to Luke Newman for coming on just spontaneously like that. fermenttalk.co.uk, fermenttalk.co.uk. And I'm going to put another one, the Glimmers lady. And this might be useful for you to get in touch with, Julie. I know this lady. She is an absolutely beautiful soul, and that's the wrong email address. And this might be very valuable to you. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't, and now I'm trying to edit and talk at the same time. Right, here we go. This is what you want. It's www.thehappinessclub.co.uk. There we go. www.thehappinessclub.co.uk. It's not all about unicorns and stars and everything's wonderful and nothing bad ever happens. It's not that at all. It's quite the opposite. It's all about mindfulness. It's about embracing it. It's allowed, or basically all the stuff we've talked about, but then strategies as well for getting to know yourself. I love that. Getting to know yourself again. Getting to love yourself again. That return to self. I'm sure that's like the hero's journey type stuff, isn't it? But and perhaps ultimately that's the journey we're all on. Probably that's the journey we're all on. So namaste, brothers and sisters, and all that. Joss stick lighting ceremony will be at 1. Peace out, man. I'm going to go and smoke some parsley that's in my kitchen and be one with the universe. Hattie on Wednesday and Phil Dave on Friday, and Russ may or may not be there. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Julie, for being so open and being able to share with us. Thank you to Mr. E, my producer. Paul Claridge. I once had Lindsay Drew bend over on the breakfast show talking about mental health in the glamour industry. Did you actually? I can imagine those two things probably didn't go hand in hand, mental health and the glamour industry. I don't think they do now, and I don't think they did then. But just to interview somebody called Bend Over I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face. I'd be sniggering like a schoolboy. I'm trying not to laugh now, and I've got 50. Did you have to do that to me? I've got 55 seconds left, and I really want to start laughing. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. You're not funny. So Wednesday, midday, men's radio station, MRS. Thank you so much. And I see we found the level. Paul, did you play tight fit after? Well, thank you for that. Thank you for lowering the tone, Fat Scotty. Very much appreciated. I shall tell Uncle Russ all about that. He's going to come round and make you stand in the corner. Love you, hug you, squeeze you. And if you are on that journey, and if you are grieving at the moment, just take this as a takeaway. You're not alone, and it is allowed, and it's going to be okay. And you do have more choices than you may have thought, because you do have the ability to respond. It's kind of the light version of the word responsibility. Heavy, I'm responsible. No, you're response-able. Okay, so you do have that choice, and you can develop that flexibility, and your world can expand again, rather than this kind of insularness, which you quite understandably feel at the moment. But it can and will get better. All right. On that note, I'm out of here. Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll speak on Wednesday. Bye.